Okay. Good evening and a very, very, very warm welcome to you wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us here live on the Geelong Region, the Soccer News or Soccer Show. It's episode 41, and joining me here in the in our virtual studio, as is the case every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Steve Curtin. Steve, welcome, and how are you?
Good, thanks, Tonchi, and welcome to you and welcome to all of our viewers tonight. And we can guarantee our viewers that none of us will be relegated in season 2020 for watching the Geelong Region Soccer Show. Big hello to all the teachers as well, organising getting some kids back to school today, and probably a sigh of relief to some of the homeschooling teachers as well, Tonchi.
Oh, absolutely. I had one out of two at my household going back to school today, and now it's just a case of the other one as well, which I'll have to wait 2 weeks for that. But speaking of promotion and relegation, you can't get relegated, but you can get promoted in season 2020, and we'll find out a little bit more about what the hell we are talking about in the news desk. Mind you, Steve, we've got something very, very snazzy coming up in the news desk a little later on. But in the meantime, what do we have coming up in the show tonight?
Well, tonight our feature club is the Geelong United Galaxy, the women's soccer club of Geelong, and we're going to speak to their president, Branko Krstevski. And we've also got one of their star players as well, Tonchi. And who would that be?
Oh, none other than Christie Merry, a senior team regular who's been at the Galaxy after a stint at Lara United and prior to that Deakin Ducks as well. So that'll be really good. And then finally, mate, we're going to go a little bit for a trip into the past, so to speak, revisiting the topics from last week's show in a special discussion forum.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we saw the poll this week. It's been based around whether we should look at that concept in Geelong of the youth summer league, and also a bit of talk as well following on from last week about that regional soccer facility that we spoke with the two councillors from the city of Greater Geelong, Eddie and Kylie, last week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fantastic. We cannot wait for that. It is going to be awesome. But it's now time straight away to get into the news desk.
This week in news. Yesterday, Football Victoria has released their resumption of football in Victoria from COVID-19 guiding principles. There's 17 of which, some of those to note include FV notes that any stakeholder participating in our competitions competes voluntarily. No stakeholder is mandated to participate in the FV competitions. All clubs should consider their own financial position and resourcing requirements before making their participation decision in 2020. And we've already seen a couple of clubs from Melbourne, Richmond and Keysborough as well, I believe, clubs that have pulled out all of their sides from competition in 2020. So we'll have to stay tuned to see if more clubs follow their suit. Also, the big one, relegation will not be applied in 2020 at any tier of competition, Tonchi.
And that's what we were talking about. Yes.
Got tongues wagging this week. Yes.
Absolutely. So no club's going to be penalised because of the COVID crisis era. Or I guess the situation that we find ourselves in. But there is that proviso that clubs do have to pay their registration fee. So, look, in effect, it's like saying, well, if you deregister yourself, that's a different story. Then, whatever the case may be, you may find yourself reapplying for if you're in the state leagues or what you're not. There is a thing there that Masters, I think it's I'll have to find it if I can. Masters, juniors, and Metro teams, which doesn't really affect the Geelong teams because we play in our own local competition, I suppose. The Masters, the community juniors, and community mini roos, they do not have to pay those fees. But mate, what do you think of that? Look. Let me get your opinion first.
Sorry, Tonchi, you just cut out.
Oh, did I? Sorry, my apologies. I was going to say, what's your opinion about all that? Like, there is promotion for those teams, obviously, that are ambitious, that want to take part, and there's not going to be any relegation. In effect, for the second year running with the state men's, that is. Obviously, state women's will be a different story. And obviously no promotion from the Victorian Metropolitan League, which we'll find out a little bit more about that from Galaxy, into the NPLW. But all the other leagues will have promotion. Good thing or a bad thing? What's your take on that?
Well, there's a lot to take in there. I think, firstly, with that VPLW, that's just a decision that's been made prior to everything happening. So that stays as is for anyone who was concerned by that one. I think, like, with clubs pulling out, potentially more clubs pulling out, what do you do there? They've come and made the decision that if as long as you repay your license by the deadline, which is the 31st of October, you'll be okay to compete in your division next year. It gives clubs still something to play for. So I think it's just making the best of a bad situation, really. I know that some people have been critical of Football Victoria for this, but some clubs have been really adversely affected, and also that reasoning that they don't force you to be involved. It's still voluntarily. It's still, a lot of this is community.
Yeah. Oh, you're cutting out on us there, Steve.
If you do withdraw, I think as long as your reasoning is sound, i.e., clubs that have lost players, personnel, sponsors due to COVID-19, that's not their fault. They shouldn't be penalised.
Look, absolutely, and look, I think it does cover everyone. Look, early in the week, we're on Tuesday actually. Earlier, I guess. Yesterday morning, we could have been quite, critical of what was happening. And I actually, in some conversations that I'd had, I was actually quite critical of Football Victoria in the sense they hadn't yet articulated exactly, was there going to be promotion, relegation? When was the season likely to start as far as the competition? There hadn't been much of that happening. But unbeknown to me, I guess, and behind the scenes, Football Victoria, particularly the Football Operations Department, was working overtime, and I'm led to believe there were that many revisions of scenarios and what you're not going on behind the scenes. So look, credit to them. They have come out and they have been quite all-encompassing, if that's the best way to describe it. And look, at the end of the day, it's not going to maybe suit everyone, but we've seen that how rapidly the situation changes, just with the training, for example. I mean, from last week to now, we got breaking news that training was going to go ahead, but clubs had to agree to certain criteria and filling out various paperworks with the councils. That's now starting to slowly happen here at the local level. But in the meantime, we've already had a little bit of a roadmap that the state government, along with the federal government, has released. So things are starting to look up, that's for sure. And look, this time next week, clubs will be able to train in groups of 20. So, that is definitely a positive. Steve, what else is happening in the world of football? You're frozen.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I think we're going to make it.
I'm back.
You're back. I thought we were going to watch the sequel of Frozen here.
I thought I was going to end up like Craig Fowler on Football Out West out in my garage.
Did you see that? Speaking of Craig, he did a magnificent job getting together Ron Smith at the very, very last minute. Ron Smith, an absolute legend of the coaching game. Yeah. He was the special guest on the Football Out West show last Thursday. And if you go on the Football Out West News Facebook page, you'll see that interview. It's also on the YouTube channel. And if you're watching this broadcast, if you're tuning into this broadcast, I implore you to go onto the Geelong Region Soccer Show YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, because I think we've got like 15 subscribers or something, which is, not a huge number, but it's a channel just starting. Football Out West has got 18. Come on, guys, let's beat Football Out West. So that was a great interview. We also had the Talkback Show, the premiere of the Talkback Show, which is part of our stable as well, on Sunday night, going head to head against The Voice. And the Football Fan Zone will happen every Sunday night at 7 p.m. We had Joey Giacomazzo from Corio Soccer Club ring in. So we do urge all football fans, especially now with the light at the end of the tunnel, become active. Become active at your club. Become active with the football community. Become active with our shows. And there was a really good social media comment Steve made during the week by Kylie Chapman from the Geelong Rangers club, where she really just said, clubs are suffering. Doesn't matter what sport or activity, clubs are suffering. And if ever there was a time to go out and support your club, it's now. Get a membership, maybe get 2 memberships. Donate some money if you're in a position to do so. Buy some merchandise or whatever the case may be. Your club needs you, whatever that club is. And that resonated.
That's it. Yeah. It's getting cold, so go and get a beanie in your club colours. Yes. And wear it around town and promote your club.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, have you been watching the Bundesliga?
I haven't actually, Tonchi. I missed the boat on the weekend. I think it's on too late at night. I'm trying to catch up on sleep by the time the weekend comes around. How about yourself, mate?
I did catch up on a little bit of the Borussia Dortmund game. I flaked it at half-time. They were up 1-0 and ended up winning 2-0, which is a good result. And then tomorrow morning, I think it's at 2:30 a.m. for all those night owls or those that don't have to go to work tomorrow or take the kids to school or are working from home. 2:30 on BEN Sports. Is that how you say it? BEN Sports?
BEN Sports.
BEN Sports. Yeah, like Jelly Bean. BEN Sports, yeah. Big game against Bayern Munich. Could be the game that decides the Bundesliga title. But, it's good to see that slowly football is coming back.
Absolutely. And we'll just go through some more of those points from that resumption of play guidelines if we have time still, Tonchi.
Absolutely. All yours.
Okay, so also interesting things to note. Prior to season commencement, junior players will require 3 weeks of pre-season training and senior players will require 4 weeks of pre-season training. However, in senior football, cup competitions such as the Nike FC Cup, which is the women's competition, and the Doherty Cup, the men's competition, may be fixtured prior to recommencement of league competition. So interestingly there, it sounds like we might still get to see some cup football in Victoria this year. So that will excite a lot of people. Also to note, a minimum of one match against each club will constitute a league season for the purpose of prize money and promotion. So that could be interesting. Like for state leagues, that would only be 11 games required to call it a season. And Football Victoria may choose to merge clubs from two or more different league structures into one league structure in order to, one, satisfy those principles, and two, ensure an adequate number of games is offered to clubs for competition purposes. So they're not ruling out the prospect of potential two divisions becoming one this season. So, yeah, watch this space.
That's an interesting point, and it will, I guess, as you said, two clubs from Melbourne have already pulled out of the men's state league competition that we know of, and that probably also affects the women's competition because it was Richmond and Keysborough, and so obviously the men have pulled out. No doubt, it's likely that if they do have women's teams, they also will be pulling out. Now, obviously, that is state. Southeast, the Southeast Conference, but it will have some sort of a flow-on effect, no doubt, on the Northwest conferences. That includes all the Geelong clubs. So, yeah, watch this space. Some interesting developments, no doubt, happening in the next few weeks. But I did find point 13 quite interesting. Prior to the season commencement, junior players will require 3 weeks of pre-season training, and senior players will require 4 weeks of training. In senior football, cup competitions may be fixtured prior to the recommencement. Now, to me, I took that away as quite interesting because I guess that will then give us an indication once they actually say, okay, yep, we're going to give at least 3 weeks for the juniors, 4 weeks for the seniors. Now we're going to actually start fixturing or start actually saying, demonstrating exactly when our competition kicks off, for example. So that will be a really, really good pointer as to, well, all right, we're really serious, no turning back now, because ultimately everything is based on there not being another outbreak or the situation in society deteriorating suddenly. So I guess, it's all, conditions apply and fine writing down the bottom, Steve.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move back more specifically into Geelong, and good news for the Warriors and the city in general at a special general meeting of all member clubs in the Croatian Soccer Association of Australia. Last Thursday night, North Geelong has been unanimously voted in as host of the 2021 Croatian Tournament of Australia and New Zealand. The tournament will take place from Thursday, the 30th of September to Sunday, the 3rd of October. 2021. So, yeah, great news there after the disappointment of having the tournament planned and then cancelled, and the Warriors can host it again next year. So, yeah, it wasn't a given. So it's good to get that over the line, Tonchi.
Yeah, I think it was, logic, common sense prevailed in the end, and like we saw with the country championships, it was really just a formality. That everything would be kind of pushed back a year. So next year we're going to have the Victorian Country Championships on the Queen's birthday weekend, the Australian Croatian Soccer Tournament on the first weekend of October, and if Barbaros John Caro is tuning in, he can or Ross Abraham from the Masters competition, they can also confirm there was something that was being mooted as far as a Masters tournament as well, being played next year, possibly a National Masters Carnival or a tournament being held in Geelong next year. So, mate, it is going to be a massive year. This year was meant to be huge, but that's all been postponed for the time being. And we got someone on the comments thread from the Masters saying hi, so I'm sure we'll find out some details here. Keep your comments coming, folks. We do appreciate all your comments. Big shout out to Santino Mamone, who is tagging half of Australia and 3/4 of Italy into his thread. So we should actually introduce him as our marketing guru. Isn't that right, Steve?
I think so. He's definitely. I think he's gone ahead of Brenton Ray in the recent months, actually. So he stepped up his game. So well
Yeah.
done, Santino. But
Yeah.
hello to Brenton as well. He's also our hype man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Hannah
Go.
Stowe has got a comment, and I will address this. She says, does the training they already have done earlier in the year count as pre-season? I wouldn't think so. I think by now everyone, I think everyone has lost serious fitness, and yeah, I think good luck to try to have that recognised. I think, if anything, 3 weeks or 4 weeks is not going to be anywhere near enough. But yeah, it's going to be pretty scary. But look, we there was an interesting interview we had with the Armstrong United crew a few weeks back, where they said that it was important that the pre-season was a decent pre-season and minimum 4 weeks. This is for seniors, minimum 4 weeks, and preferably even more, maybe 6 weeks, because of the likelihood of players getting injured. Because I guess because of they're coming back too quickly. I know with my nephew actually started training last week. After one training session, he was already feeling muscular pains and things like that, and felt that he had to miss the second session. So whether it's kids, whether it's adults, Hannah, good point though. They will need a decent pre-season. And look, as someone who's worked in the fitness industry, it's very, very scary how quickly your body can get decommissioned. I don't know if that's the right word. Your physical conditioning can go in the wrong way. It's scary. Yeah. It's very, very scary. Now, the Masters Summer League, I think it's Ross probably, definitely will be a Masters Summer League, and we're working on something bigger. Watch this space. Okay. We're going to watch this space, but that's mooting something quite big. So we look forward to the guys from the Masters Summer League. Mate, is there anything else happening around the track?
I was going to say dust off the boots, Tonchi, but also a bit of news down by the mouth of the Barwon River. Barwon Heads Soccer Club has been successful in securing a grant from the Barwon Heads Bendigo Bank Community Branch that will support female participation, promote healthy choices, encourage volunteer support, and promote soccer to young people for the 2020 season. The Hammerheads are looking forward to getting back out in the field with the bank's logo emblazoned on their new kits. And good luck to everyone down there at the Barwon Heads Soccer Club, the Hammerheads as they're known, for a good season when it begins.
Yeah, and whilst we're on that, I'm pretty sure that our local club ambassador, Foddy Kiprian, has been in touch with all the clubs, and he's I do catch up with Foddy from time to time, my old colleague out at Football Victoria, and he is working very hard to touch base with all the clubs, and I'm sure the clubs themselves are aware that there's a lot of grants going out at the moment. I know John Aaron, a local state MP, who's been a great supporter of this show in the past, has on his various social medias platforms been informing the public of a lot of grants, a lot of financial support for community clubs, including sports clubs, including our own football clubs. So if you're a club out there, the best thing you can do is one of two things: appoint a designated grants officer, or touch base with people like Robert Parmachotti at Grant Professionals as well. And I only say that because I believe Robert's tuned in and he's watching the show. So cheerio to Rob. But yeah, get your hands and apply on as many grants as possible, because now is the time to do that. Whether it's for facilities, whether it's simply just keeping your head above water, or trying to get back onto the saddle, so to speak. But yeah, it's going to be a very busy time from now until the end of the year.
It is. And finally, no time for an international football angle tonight, but we will go to our own Geelong Region Soccer News Facebook page, where we asked our viewers the question: should the Geelong region host an annual youth summer league? currently, and actually we have the poll, the final results of the poll. We've got hell yes, 85%, and no way Jose is 15%.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, but it's now time for us to take a very, very quick break, and we're talking a very, very quick break. And when we return, we're going to have the president of Galaxy United FC, Branko Krstevski, joining us. Do not go away. Welcome back to the Geelong Region Soccer Show, and you are listening. You are watching episode number 41. Episode number 41, and it's Tonchi here and Steve as well. And Steve, we've got our first guest for tonight.
We do. And thanks for joining us, and a big welcome to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's the Geelong Galaxy president, Branko Krstevski. Branko, how do we find you this evening?
Oh, good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Hey, Branko, how are you? It's first of all, thank you and welcome to the show. You've been a regular in the past, so it's always great to have you on board, and always great to get an insight into see what's happening down at Galaxy. But mate, let's start off with the obviously the coronavirus has really played havoc with everyone, including Galaxy. I think there's a little bit of echo on your side, Branko. Can you maybe turn the speakers down?
Help?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. That's a bit better. Yeah, that's a bit better. All right. Okay. Now, we just wanted to ask you I think he's just frozen. Oh, no, he's playing that game again, Frozen 2. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. He's going to come back. He pulled the wrong plug, I think, Branko Krstevski. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, obviously, Galaxy United was in the NPL W competition last year, and then after somewhat of a restructuring, they ended up getting dropped along with Southern United to the newly created Victorian Metropolitan Women's Competition. So we'll find out from Branko Krstevski a little bit more about that and how the club was faring. Here he comes. He's going to be joining us very, very shortly. He's in the green room, and here we go. Hi, Branko, you're back. How are you?
Sorry about that, guys. I was trying to adjust the volume. I pressed the computer off button.
Well, we thought you pulled the wrong plug. Not to worry. Branko, we're talking about, in the off-season. Obviously, it was a difficult time in many ways, or difficult off-season, because obviously following the somewhat restructuring of the NPLW competition at the end of last year, Galaxy, along with Southern United, found themselves relegated to the newly formed or newly created, I guess, Women's Metropolitan League. Tell us, first of all, in the off-season, obviously you became president. How did the club cope with all of that? And on the eve of the new season starting with the coronavirus wreaking havoc, what was the outlook for season 2020?
Yeah, look, we've moved forward from that. That was a disappointing experience for the club. Our players now, our senior team, don't have an opportunity more to play at the NPLW level, so those that want to keep playing are now finding themselves having to travel up to Melbourne 3-4 times a week, 3 hours on the freeway. So it's tough. But we're moving forward, and we're going to work hard now to get on with the competition, and hopefully in the future be in a position where we can return and have an opportunity for our girls to participate again at that level. As far as the coronavirus, we're back in full swing. We've been preparing to return to training, and now we're very close we're going to start on Tuesday with our trainings for all of our teams.
Yes, very, very good to hear. And tell us about yourself. How have you been keeping sane during these last couple of months?
Well, for me, it hasn't been a problem. I'm actually work from home anyway, so just I got to spend a little bit more time with the kids, which I look after anyway. So it's been okay. The kids are getting a little bit claustrophobic. They've been away from their friends for a long time, but they're coping okay. And hopefully we'll get outdoors a bit more now.
Branko, is it a situation with your kids like the situation with my kids? It's not so much that they're missing their friends. It's more like they're sick of the parents being constantly around.
I have found they're spending a lot more time in their rooms now.
Yeah. Now, getting back to let's talk about your family. In fact, because your girls are very much into football and very much were really active and the like. How hard has it been as not only a president of a soccer club, but also a soccer dad, and your lovely wife Marina, soccer mum? How hard has it been to keep the kids' enthusiasm going? So I guess there's only so many toe taps and juggles and kicks against the wall that they can do in the backyard.
Well, I've been taking them out and actually training with them, so that's been good, is keeping them exercising. They've improved their skills and their shooting, like you talked about. But yeah, but I think it's time that they get back to some competition where they've actually got contact and getting some intensity, and hopefully once the restrictions ease a little bit more, that'll improve.
Goodness me, what is that whistle happening? Yeah, it's coming from your end.
My end. Sorry about that. Our test went much better, country.
Well, we're using a platform very similar to Zoom, probably. Sometimes good, better, sometimes worse. Steve, did you have any questions?
Branko, tell us about how things are going with your off-field staff. How has it been for them in this period, and now that they're getting ready to get the squads back out on the training park? How have things been going with those guys and girls?
Yeah, so the coaches have actually been running some programs. Most of the teams have actually had their training programs, and they've been actually working in isolation, following the program. So that's been going okay. Administratively, we've been pretty active. We've been following the health regulations and making sure that we understand all the hygiene stuff that needs to be followed, and making sure we can create a safe environment for all of our members and our players once we get back on track. And so that's been okay. We've kept our social media platform running, so that's helped also the members stay engaged and help with communication. And we've also been trying to look for new revenue streams. Like many other clubs, we've lost some sponsorship, and we've lost our ability to fundraise, and we can't have any functions at the clubhouse cafeteria, nothing. So we have to find alternative revenue streams. So
how are looking at Branko, how are you going with regards to that? Because obviously sponsorship is going to be very difficult. All small businesses are finding it very, very difficult. No match day revenue, no club functions. So when you say the club's been exploring alternative revenue streams, without giving us too many secrets away, what could you recommend or advise other clubs to do? Who we're all in the same boat, I guess.
Yeah, well, you guys brought one up already. Look at the grants that are available. So there could be some low-hanging fruit there. Also stay engaged and in touch with your sponsors. The ones that are hard hit now. Stay close to them. That hopefully in the future, when the situation improves, they can come back on board quickly. So there are a couple of suggestions that I could make for other clubs.
Now, Barbaros John Carra is saying, we'll bring this comment up. Rob Parmachotti helped the Masters Summer League with our grant application, can wholeheartedly recommend me for club grant application. So, yeah, that just reflects the importance now of grants. And obviously, that's something that we just touched on Branko, with regards to some of the politicians and, the council, state, federal. I'm sure they're going to be putting a lot of money into community clubs because they've identified how important it is to get back to a post-COVID era, I suppose. Your comment as a president of a club, how have the interactions with local council, Football Victoria, how has that all been? Have they been pretty good as far as disseminating information to club level, or could it have been done a little bit better? What's your impression of all of that, or your assessment of all of that?
I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty satisfied with the information we've had. We've been involved in meetings, and also we've had Body, the ambassador. He's been helpful. He's been giving us sharing information. But I think the government's done a pretty good job considering the severity of the pandemic and whatever. We've had a pretty good feed of news and updates. So that's kind of eased a lot of the stress for our members and our staff. So I think we're in a place now where everyone's a little bit more comfortable, and we've got to make sure that once we get on the park that we have a really good, safe environment for everyone, and we follow all the regulations strictly so that we can just get on with training and playing football. That's what we're here for.
If you've got any questions for us, sorry to cut you off, Steve, but if you've got any questions for Branko, the president of Galaxy United, if your daughter is playing it, or if you're playing at Galaxy United, you'd like some more information about what is going on there, then most definitely please put a question in the questions in the comment section. Sorry to cut you off, Steve.
That's all right. How's the feel around the junior side of the club? Obviously, the junior club is still part of the NPL competition, with the seniors going down to the VPLW. Is the juniors looking just as popular as it were last year, at least leading into the COVID-19 period?
Well, our juniors have they're in pretty good shape. As you know, we've actually been training since November in the pre-season, and their actually season began, and the season stopped after 4 rounds. So all three teams that we have, they all did really well. They've all generated wins. I think looked like we're going to be finals bound. So we're really happy with their progress. And now we just have to be careful and mindful that we avoid injuries. So we've got to make sure we ramp up gradually. We follow the guidance of our soft tissue people to make sure that we don't overstrain the girls, and we make sure that we have a plan for them to get up to full intensity, because as you guys know, our game is about burst, it's about intensity. So all the work they do on their own, the running, the conditioning, the jogging, that's fine as a base, but to get to a playing level, you really need that intensity training, which takes weeks. I'm hoping that the 3 weeks, the 4 weeks that the FA is putting aside is actually full contact training.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
that's a very good point. And I guess the thing is, everyone's in the same boat, so it's not like any one particular team has got more of an advantage over the other. I suppose, though, some of the clubs and if we do take a look at some of the clubs that are in that competition, I mean, yes. Technically, Galaxy is getting relegated down a division, and some clubs are going up a division. But when you've got clubs like Melbourne Knights, South Yarra, Preston Lions, Melbourne University, Boroondara Carey Eagles, Eltham Redbacks, these are all clubs with a pretty strong female program. So it's certainly not going to be an easy division. Now, I guess the Galaxy has been somewhat handicapped with the news. Recent news that you've lost your technical director, so you're on the lookout for a new technical director. Bianca, what's happened there? Unfortunately, Bianca's had to leave.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bianca resigned. She was unhappy, so we're now moving forward, and we're looking for a replacement. She did a fantastic job for us at the start. She helped us set up the program, the recruiting, helped us with the staffing, coaches. So she did a tremendous job. But unfortunately, she's decided to move on, and I wish her all the best moving forward.
Branko, last week we talked a lot about proposed regional soccer facility for Geelong. Does yourself or the club have any thoughts on that? And although Stead Park is an ever-improving facility, could the club someday look to be playing at a new regional facility in the Geelong area?
Look, we think it's a fantastic idea. It's probably well overdue. When you talk to the Bobby Hazes of the world, they'll tell you they've been pushing it for decades. We're a big community in Geelong. We've got a strong, rich history of clubs. We've got 60, 50-year-old clubs around. So there's a lot of interest, a lot of history. I think we could all benefit. We could all benefit from having a big facility like that, where we can attract more matches. From a personal point of view, as a women's only team, I think that could be a fantastic spot for a W League team. It's something that we could probably be involved with further down the road as well. So yeah, I think overdue. We support it 100%.
Now, in recent weeks, we've actually had quite a good representation of females on our show. 2 weeks ago, we had Jo Plummer, and she said precisely that she'd love to see within 5 years Geelong actually have a W League side. And last week we had Councillor Kylie Grisbeck, who's the deputy mayor, and she's really pushing hard for this concept of an all-purpose stadium facility, sub-regional facility. Tonight we're going to have another female, Christie Merry, joining us very shortly. So she's a staple of the senior team. So we look forward to catching up with Christie very shortly. But when we're talking about females in football, Branko, one thing that we spoke about off air is the lack of female coaches, or the lack of quality female coaches. And one of the problems seems to be that not enough females are actually going and attending female, not just female coaching, but coaching courses in general. And it seems to me that we've still got a lot of men in coaching circles, simply because that's the best that we've got at the moment, and it's great. We're not going to pick the best coaches based on gender, on merit. But part of we've got a really loud noise coming through. I think that's probably. Yeah, that's definitely coming from
that's better.
Branko's end. Yeah, so we're going to have to put Branko back on, but it's definitely coming from Branko's end. So, ladies and gentlemen, apologies for those technical glitches, the audio glitches, but we're going to bring Branko back on. Branko, he's back on. What can be done to get more females attending coaching courses and hence building up that pool of female coaches in the Geelong area?
I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen in the future. Our female game is not as mature as the men's game, so there's not as many people available at the moment. But if you look at your clubs, the old traditional clubs, the administrators, the coaches, pretty much everyone, all the volunteers at the club are ex-players. So our first generation or our latest generation of girls are really still playing. They're actually still playing. They're probably got in the game 10 years ago, the majority of them. So they're still playing. So we want to create an environment where they can actually move into coaching, they can move into administration, they can move into running the clubs as well. So we've got to make sure that we create an environment that's equal, that's actually inclusive, and we can keep our footballers in the game. And I think that naturally out of that, we're going to get quality coaches, we're going to get quality administrators, because the involvement that I've had so far with our female footballers is that they're terrific people, they're really good people, and I think if they stick around as they mature and get further on in their lives, they can take over from what we've done.
And I guess the women's game has grown dramatically here in Geelong. And if you speak to the clubs and if you speak to Foddy, the club ambassador, they'll tell you it was done as almost as a long-term vision, and it all started from the mini roos. The mini roos then worked their way up to juniors, and the juniors are now starting to work their way up to seniors, and it's sustained that growth. Maybe an option is to get more and more mums coaching at that mini roos level, and then being able to, I guess, work their way up and develop their way up into coaching at the senior level. Would that be an option, Branko?
Yes, certainly. That's what I think we're seeing that already. When I go to the gala days, you'll see there's a lot of actually female coaches coming through. So as they get more experience, more confidence, we'll be very welcoming at Galaxy to step up. So, yeah, I think the future looks good.
Awesome. Steve, have you got any more questions for Branko before we move on to our next guest?
Branko, just one last one. The Geelong Community Cup held a women's competition this year in their Lightning Premiership format. What did the girls and the coaches think of that? Obviously, they got the win, so they would have been pretty happy with themselves. But were they happy participants? Would they be back again for next year?
Yes, Steve, that was a really good experience for the girls. They've been playing competitively against the biggest clubs in Victoria, against the toughest opposition. So this was kind of a good way to play at a less pressure level, and it gave an opportunity to our under 19s and 16s to get senior match football, and they got a really good result as well. They won the tournament, and holding up a trophy is kind of the memory that sticks with you for a very long time. So yeah, we're really positive, and we as a club we will definitely be involved in tournaments like that, or even going further, we're going to be involved in a lot more tournaments, end of season tournaments, pre-season tournaments. So we want to get our aim for our club is to get more minutes in the girls, more minutes in the legs, more match minutes, more training minutes, more touches on the ball, because we're striving to build high-skilled, high-quality players, and at the same token, we also want our coaches exposed to in more pressure environments. We want to develop our coaches as well, and collectively, with our committee, we're create an environment where we can be seen as like a really super an NPLW club of choice, for the Geelong, for the region, and hopefully even for Melbourne clubs eventually, because that's what we want to do. We want to really have a super product for our locals.
Branko, one last question. John Carra, he's very active in the comment section. He's got a really good question to ask. I know he's involved with the Geelong Football Club or Soccer Club. He's saying, how is the relationship with Geelong Soccer Club going, and what is the future of that? Good question, John.
Yeah, our relationship is really good with Geelong Soccer Club. They actually invited us to participate in the Community Cup, so we thank them for that. And we're at this stage, we're co-tenants, and we're very fortunate to be sharing the facility with them. It's a great facility. It's Stead Park. I don't know if you guys have seen recently, but we've now got 4 fields for training. I
drive past Stead Park virtually every day, and I've seen it come along, and it is absolutely amazing. 4 fantastic pitches, all flood lit. It's a credit to everyone down at Geelong Soccer Club with Stead Park, and on top of that, the fact that there hasn't been any activity, the pitches are looking green and lush and ready for football action.
Yeah. So all good with us at Stead Park at the moment. We want to have a high level product and really a top class facilities, a top class surface. That's the kind of environment that's going to produce high skill. So I'm going to be lobbying to make sure we have access to the newest and the best facilities if we can for our footballers.
Absolutely. Branko, on that note, thank you very much for joining us. And you can now switch off that wind turbine that's happening in the background. We do appreciate.
Sorry about that, guys.
In all seriousness, we thank you and do appreciate your time for coming on and giving us a really good insight into Galaxy. Branko Krstevski, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Branko.
That was Branko. Oh, gosh, I can hear myself think now. Steve, we're going to take a little bit of a break. She's in the green room, Christie Merry, who's one of the toughest defenders out in the local competitions. We're going to hear from her very, very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, we've got Christie Merry from Galaxy. She's going to be our next guest. Welcome back to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It is episode number 41, Steve. And who's our guest coming up?
Well, as you just said, Tonchi, one of the toughest defenders going around at Stead Park. It's a big welcome to Christie Merry. How are you doing tonight, Christie?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, Christie.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure having you. And as Steve said, one of the toughest defenders. And look, we've both had the pleasure of calling a lot of games. And in particular, I called quite a fair few Galaxy games from last year, both at Stead Park, and there was one or two up at Leisure Time Centre as well. It was a tough season last year, really, really tough. But there was just moments of absolute pleasure watching Galaxy strut their stuff, and in particular, the two Japanese girls, they were amazing. They were electrifying. But it was just great to see a lot of young players that had come up through the ranks of the local competitions, and I guess you're one of them, even though you're actually not a Geelong native. Start from the start. Tell us your journey in football and how you came about to be playing senior team football at Galaxy.
Yeah, so my soccer career started when I was very young. I think I started playing when I was 8 for a team in central Queensland, very small, like rural town, and my dad was actually the coach. So, and kind of grew up in Queensland and then moved to Geelong to study uni. I was studying at Deakin University, so I just thought I'd just join the local team there. And actually didn't know that Geelong had like a state league or even had like the NPL. Didn't really know anything about Victorian football, but just wanted to challenge myself and started with Deakin. And then, found out about state league and moved up to Lara. And then last year was lucky enough to get a position at Galaxy.
Now, Christie, what was it like playing football back in Queensland? Was it much different to the vibe around football in southern Victoria here? And also, what was it like with your dad as coach? Did he go a bit harder on you than the others?
Queensland was very, very different to Victoria. One main difference that I remember is that we actually don't play games if it rains because it's so rare and it just wrecks the pitches. So I think maybe we'd have like one game cancelled per season because of the rain. But obviously in Victoria, that's something you just have to adjust to and is so different. So soccer down here for me is a bit more challenging, being a winter sport and how cold it is. With Dad as my coach, I think I probably pushed myself more than Dad pushed me. He's very encouraging and he was amazing. But I'm definitely harder on myself than Dad ever was on me.
Were you always a defender? Were you always sort of a defensive-minded player, or did you play different positions or different roles, going back?
Yeah, I actually was always a winger. Even at my Geelong teams, even at Lara, I played on the wing. It was actually my partner who convinced me that I should try defence, and kind of that's how it started. He runs a football academy, and so I was doing one-on-one sessions with him, and he was just like, "No, you've got to be in defence. You've got to be in defence." And I was like, "No, I've always been on the wing." But yeah, it was good to give something a go, and I guess it's where I feel more comfortable now.
Now, your partner, he's also a pretty rugged defender himself, is he not? Is that something you both got in common, would you say?
Yeah, it was so funny when you called me a tough defender, because he always jokes that I should be a bit stronger. So yeah, he's a lot more hardcore than I am, and he does some things that I think are a bit risky, but he's taught me a lot of what I know, so I'm very grateful.
I've seen Blaine playing out back when he was at Golden Plains, and he put his body in some places where you wouldn't want it to be quite a few times.
He's pretty savage on the field. He does not let much stop him. So
now, Christie, you started obviously locally speaking, so you're playing in the local community league or the local Geelong Region League. Moved up to the state leagues with Lara, and then ultimately ended up playing at in NPLW. And obviously this year now it will be a new challenge, obviously in the newly created Metropolitan competition. Let's compare the 3 tiers of football there. How did you find the different competitions as far as intensity and as far as the skill of the other players, the opposition players?
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of intense, I think, any league that you play in. I remember my first year at Deakin, I didn't really know what to expect. I think we took out the championship that year, which was lucky, but I think the Geelong competition is actually really challenging. Even in the community league, everyone's pretty committed and people are quite skillful, even playing in the community division. The first year that I was at Lara, we were in State League 1. I remember thinking this is probably the highest that I'm ever going to play. The players were amazing. Some of the girls just seemed more skillful than I thought that I would ever be able to play against. And then kind of just somehow made it to Galaxy. And like you said, you mentioned the 2 Japanese girls in my team last year. They were incredible, and even playing against people that skillful. Just amazing. Everyone's just so good, and I sometimes pinch myself. How am I even playing against these people, let alone comparing myself to them? So,
are they staying? Is it what are the girls? Kana Oda
and Fukumaru.
Yeah, are they staying in Geelong, or are they gone back to Japan?
No, they went back when COVID happened. Yep. I think they wanted to be back with their families. They were signed in an MPL 1 team, and then I think they've just gone home to be for this tricky time.
Yeah, has Galaxy, the senior team, have you guys lost a lot of players for 2020?
Compared to last year, our team looks very, very different. We have a lot of the juniors that have come up into the seniors this year, and the girls that were playing the under-19s have kind of moved up into our senior team, which is cool. But a lot of girls still wanted to play in that higher league, or kind of got over maybe the travel and just stuck to a lower league for the meantime anyway.
Yeah.
And how was the pre-season shaping up for yourself? You're all ready to go for that first week. I think the Nike FC Cup and round 1 was coming up right before all this hit. We just all ready to go. Everyone was fit and firing, and it was going to be a good season. Do you think in the VPLW, maybe a bit more opportunity to play against some more modest teams and get some more wins on the board?
Yeah, I think everyone was really eager to get going. We obviously didn't know what to expect with this new league. But we started preseason back in, I think, the end of October or early November. Wow. So we'd been, had preseason for a long time. And Rob had put in a lot of hours and a lot of sessions and a lot of research, I think. He was kind of framing our preseason according to what the literature said and how we should, how many minutes we should be doing, resting times and that kind of stuff. So everyone was super keen, but this has been a bit of a dampen on the season.
Now Rob Casher, who was an assistant there last year, and he took over the reins this year. Well known around football circles down here in Geelong. He obviously would have been quite meticulous in his planning. But if we have a look at the teams in the Victorian, or it's Premier League as it's being called, being touted: South Yarra, Melbourne Knights, Casey Comets, Preston Lions, Southern United, Melbourne University, Boroondara Carey Eagles, Eltham Redbacks, and White Horse United. I think she's
long road trips in there.
She's gone. Yeah, I was going to. My question was, I think I bored her to death. She's decided to go. Hopefully she'll come back on. My question was going to be, which of those teams were going to be like a bit of a challenge? Now, hopefully we get Christie back. Here she comes. She's about to join us. She pulled the wrong plug as well, I think. She's back in 3, 2, 1. Oh, you're back. You're back. What happened?
Sorry,
there?
I think my internet died.
It does happen. It does happen. Now, the question was going to be, who are going to be the pick of the bunch or the toughest opponents in that division? I just reeled off all of the teams, so I'm not going to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually remember playing against some of those teams in State League 1 when I was with Lara, and I honestly can't tell you. I think Preston is going to be a very strong team.
Yep.
You never know. Like, the teams kind of change so much between seasons, and players come and go. Like, any team could really be more challenging than we're expecting.
And I guess we don't know what effect the COVID-19 has had on these clubs as well. So I guess that's another thing. But I guess moving more to you and the club there at Stead Park, we touched on the fact that now at Stead Park there's 4 fantastic pitches, all floodlit, all ready to go. I guess one of the problems last year was that with 2 pitches, not everyone could be accommodated. So you had to train quite, all over the place, almost lead a nomadic existence. Christie, are you really looking forward to having more of a settled training regime, for the rest of 2020 and moving forward there at Stead Park?
Absolutely. I remember it was kind of like Sam was our coach last season, and we would get a message maybe half an hour or an hour before training, because he'd been trying all afternoon to get us a pitch that was suitable to play on, and often the lights were pretty poor or the pitch was pretty cut up, like with all the rain and the players playing. And I think it's going to be amazing to have like a solid base to know where we're going to be at all times, and hopefully the pitch is good quality as well.
Sounds like a big improvement. Now, how's it been the last couple of months for you? Have you been trying to get out and do some training, or has the club given you a program to follow, or has it been just up to do as you feel, or hang out on the couch, or?
Rob's been messaging us like sessions that we should try and do. I've personally been training with Rise Academy, Blaine's Academy, once a week, which is cool. And I have caught up with a few girls to go for a kick. Since the restrictions have eased as well, I think everyone's so keen and trying to stay fit. But obviously it's pretty hard to be match ready until you actually get to train or you actually get to have some practice matches.
Fantastic. Steve, you got any other questions?
It looks like you've got some good indoor plants there. I was wondering if there's any care tips for that monstera on your left there.
Honestly, my indoor plant obsession is insane. If you looked around my house, you'd be concerned. So thankfully, I've got soccer as another passion. You can see another one in the background, but I need to get back on the pitch, so I stopped buying plants, I think.
You're looking very healthy.
Don't do what Craig Filer did on the Football Outwear show last Thursday, where he ended up going for a tour around his whole house and finally ended up in the garage because the internet reception was really, really poor. Masters Summer League Geelong says, Christie, what town in Queensland do you hail from? Which part of Queensland?
Yes, I'm from Rockhampton.
The Rockies.
Rock Vegas. Yeah, but I originally my first season I played in a small town called Yeppoon, and I was in a Kawarl team, so very, very rural Queensland.
Mike Parker, the president of Armstrong United, says, and a good question indeed, he says, what can local clubs do to support Galaxy more, or vice versa? The region needs a strong Galaxy. Great question, Mr. President of the Armstrong United FC. Christie?
Yeah, I think I feel like it's still kind of Galaxy doesn't have the best reputation. I've heard that things potentially happened before I came to the club long, long ago, and potentially they weren't picking Geelong players or something along those lines. But I still think it would be really cool if everyone could kind of work together, and like clubs could promote the players that they think should be playing at a higher level to try and get them to come to Galaxy. Like, we know there's players that are playing like community leagues or state leagues that could be playing at Galaxy and should be playing at Galaxy. And I think just getting the coaches to communicate to the Galaxy coaches and putting their names forward and getting our coaches to contact them, I guess.
Yeah, we've been big advocates of the clubs themselves off the field, really working a lot more cohesively, a lot more supporting each other. And look, White Line Fever, when you do get on, obviously then it's a different story. You get on the park, and that's obviously something that we want to keep going, that rivalry. But off the field, we want the clubs to be working a lot more together. One last question. I've got a question. Actually, I've sent a lot of questions. Christie, last week we did talk about, and we'll talk a little bit more later in the show about, proposals, thinking outside the square. One of the proposals that I particularly brought up was the idea of a summertime youth league, or a youth league happening from October through to December. And look, obviously at the moment we probably don't have the numbers in the women's competition maybe to have a big competition, but we may. I might be pleasantly surprised. But you as a player playing in October through to December, a youth league type competition that might be under 22s or under 23s with a couple of players over age. Does the concept of something like that intrigue you, excite you, or bore the hell out of you after a long winter season?
I think it's exciting, but I feel like potentially, for an older player like myself, maybe we need that time to recover and kind of that downtime. Like, we probably start pre-season only maybe a month or so after our season ends. So it's kind of like a nice break to not have that commitment and just like to catch up on, leisure activities and things, and kind of let your body rest for a little bit.
Are our pre-seasons too long? Taking into account our season, what could last, 18 or 22 games? I think this year would have been 22 games. Particularly for those younger players looking to really maybe break into the NPL or breaking into the W League one day. Is 18 to 22 games a season enough for those players?
Oh, I think that I felt like the preseason was appropriate length when we were in the NPL. Mm-hmm. But now that our season's been shortened, it did feel like we started early. Just thinking like we were hoping that we would have more games, and then we were constantly hearing that it was revised and we were having less. And, there was still that uncertainty of how many games we were actually going to play. I feel like the more the better, and the less preseason the better. Yeah. But that's just my personal preference. I just love playing the games, and I know training is important, but that's obviously why I play, is to play the actual game itself. And
absolutely. Steve, any final questions for our guest?
Oh no, I'd have to agree with that though. As certainly starting pre-season in what was end of October, start of November, and then no games until you weren't going to play any games until
April,
late March.
It was good to get the team together, and we obviously knew that we had lots of young players coming up, and we were trying to get a really good dynamic going, and it was awesome. I think what Rob did was amazing, but obviously if we could have started games earlier, it would have been really great too.
Yeah.
Training's great, but it's, after a couple of months, it's it's not getting so much out of it anymore. Really, just filling in time till the season starts.
And that will have to weigh up on your mind and on a lot of players' minds. The return to training, particularly the first few weeks, where we won't even be able to have games. We won't even be able to have contact. So it'll be pretty much just glorified skill sessions. But on the other hand, will it be just nice to get out there and catch up with the rest of the girls as well?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we went through a long preseason, and then now that we've been at home, none of us are probably match ready. You can't really be match ready without playing against other people. Yep. So I think that it's important that we do actually get a few training sessions in before we're supposed to go back to actual games as well. Otherwise, I think that there will just be so many injuries and people just not ready for the actual game itself. So I think it is important to catch up with the team first.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, Christie, we wish you all the very, very best for season 2020 or what's left of it or whatever it's going to be for the future as well. And indeed, everyone there at Galaxy looking forward to watching you guys strut your stuff on the park where it matters the most.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
That was Christie Merry from Galaxy United, a lovely young lady, and it was a great insight, Steve, into let's face it, one of Geelong's biggest clubs. They might not be an NPLW, but they are certainly an NPL club as far as their juniors are concerned, and it has been great to see a lot of those players. And Galaxy at the moment does provide that pathway for a lot of those players moving up the ranks and eventually playing at the highest available level for females in the city.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that question from Mike Parker there was a really good question. And yeah, it's probably just one of many things, but definitely the clubs collaborating, the other clubs around the region collaborating with the Galaxy and working out what players and coaches might be able to be involved in the Galaxy going forward or what have you, and having those positive relationships, given that they are a unique club, they're a sort of a performance level club, they're a women's only club. They have sort of they have definitely some upsides, but they also have some challenges as well, based on those things, I would say. So building that network around Geelong a bit stronger, maybe that's one thing that they can focus on.
Yeah,
and the other clubs can focus on too. But it's one of many things, no doubt, as well. It's a shame to hear about those two players, Kana Oda and Tomoku Fukumaru, both departing the club. I think when we were calling games out at Stead Park last year, we really enjoyed watching the technical aspect of those two players. It's a shame that with the club going down from NPLW that they were sort of forced to leave the town, Geelong.
Yeah, but as I think Christie said, there was a lot of juniors coming up through the ranks, so it would have been great to see, and will be great to see a lot of those talented juniors. They did pick up an explosive striker, Emily Sutcliffe, who was the Golden Boot winner in the local competition, I think the Division 2 competition with Geelong, and she also happened to be the Golden Boot winner in the Community Cup, the women's division as well. So a lot of firepower up front. Mate, we're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, we're going to look at some of those topics and some of those issues that were raised at last week's show, and then we're going to maybe dissect a little bit about that as well. So don't go away. Stay where you are. We've got some more discussion, and we want you, the listener, the viewer, to get involved as well. So drop us some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, welcome back to the Geelong Region Soccer Show, episode 41, where we're venturing into stoppage time. The referee's looking at his whistle, and he's about to blow the final whistle. But in the meantime, Steve, let's revisit two of the topics that were brought up on last week's show. Firstly, the idea of a sub-regional facility or a regional facility. It was gaining a lot of traction. A lot of feedback, a lot of comments, and the idea that someone like the Deputy Mayor of the City of Greater Geelong, Kylie Grisbeck, is pushing for a facility that's going to not only include multiple pitches and synthetic pitches and futsal-sized pitches, but also a 5,000-seater showpiece stadium, which would be better than what Ballarat's got. Yes, we want that. We want better than what Ballarat's got. That was great to see that sort of conversation really taking off.
It was. And I think that's what we're here tonight to talk about a bit more too, is to keep that conversation going around the Geelong community. It's not just a one-off. This is going to be an ongoing thing for the foreseeable future now that we're going to be talking about. The money's there for the for the investigations into the business case. So we look forward to seeing what happens. One of the big things for me, and we noticed in the comments last week, is to do with the location. You know, where is the best spot within the northwestern growth area to build it? I haven't actually had a look at the future master plans to actually check where their proposed regional centres are. So,
Steve, where do you think if you sort of got a map of Geelong and then just threw a dart and it landed somewhere, where do you think would be an ideal location?
Oh, there's plenty of different ideas, but obviously there's might be more opportunity to actually have it in that northwestern growth area, because that will actually bring investment in itself. But the one I saw today was the Geelong Sale Yard site is up for a redevelopment. And I thought there's a lot of space there. Is that somewhere where it's pretty central? It's close to North Geelong train station. It's not far from Melbourne Road and Ballarat Road. Is there any chance that somewhere like that could be the venue of a 6,000 seat stadium with a couple of practice pitches as well, or something like that? What do you think, Tonchi?
I don't think so. I think that's mainly going to be a high density or medium to high density sort of living area, residential area, and the only parks they have there or recreation facilities will really be more those linear type parks and things like that. I don't think there's enough space there. Personally, I would love to have seen, I wish that Ford had done this when Ford had deserted the city. I think they should have left us a lasting legacy by tearing down a couple of those big Ford factories down in North Geelong. That's along a train line, so we could have had, a massive facility there. But look, at the end of the day, what I'm going to say is, wherever it is, may it be somewhere where we can have a decent facility. Not, 2 or 3 pitches squashed together, limited car parking. I know they did talk about, in 10 years' time, there was a belief that down in the Armstrong Creek corridor near the Warm Ponds train station, and I've actually seen master plans that they wanted to have that somewhere around there.
They did, yeah.
I'm not sure what the place is called, Gazenpur Road or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do like the idea of it being based in the northwestern suburbs. Apart from the fact that I'm a northern boy, its proximity to Melbourne means obviously down the track it could, possibly have some sort of co-investment or some sort of cohabitation, maybe with Western United, possibly basing the W League team and the Youth League team there. If Geelong doesn't happen to have that. So, look, at the end of the day, I would be all for moving it to a location where we would be able to have a decent facility. And look, let's face it, with the Ring Road, to go from Lara down to say Armstrong Creek or even Surf Coast, it's not that big a deal. If you take the Western Ring Road, it's not that massive a deal. So, look, that's my take. What are your thoughts, people? We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to see what you think. But I will say this, Steve. The recent draft budget or the draft proposal from the City of Greater Geelong has seen a lot of football clubs benefit. Hume Reserve, obviously Geelong Soccer Club, North Geelong, the list goes on. Rangers are going to get something. Lara United. Drysdale Soccer Club. The list goes on and on and on and on. Surf Coast in another shire as well. They're getting a third pitch as well. What it means is that if we were suddenly to get funding from state or federal for a regional facility, it's not going to affect the existing clubs and the existing facilities. I think if anything, with things like the Croatian tournament next year, the country championships, the Masters competition, and in years to come, if the women's World Cup gets awarded to Australia, we'll find out next month. Why couldn't a facility like that become the perfect training camp for an international team? So there's reasons aplenty for pushing something like this. We as a football community, and we get back to that thing that we talked about earlier with Christie, off the field, we need to be very united. We need to be cohesive. That's my take, Steve. What's your take?
On the cohesiveness, yes, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it might be that the growth area is the only area that's targeted for it. And look, potential. Maybe we can get it set up so that it is next to. I know they're looking at using the old Ballarat rail line there as a commuter sort of rail eventually one day. And I'd urge them to consider locating it near like a little station on that. So a lot of the younger people who are too young to drive, don't have licenses and things, can get out to the football and enjoy it like the good old days, and they're not reliant on the car. There's some really good venues out there. Went out to in round one of the NPL this year. Went out to Hume's ground out there at Broadmeadows Valley Park, and absolutely fantastic facility. But I did hear at the end of the game when they had the big FFA Cup fixture there against Victory, it was a nightmare to get out of there because it's completely car dependent. So
and that was the problem.
I'd like it if they could consider, if they are building it out in the boondocks a bit, so to speak, to consider kind of a variety of different modes to get out there, so people can get out and enjoy their football and not get stuck in a big jam at the end of the 90 minutes.
Well, the referee is about to blow the final whistle, but very, very quickly we'll touch on the poll that was put up, and that was it attracted a lot of interest. Up until 5 p.m. we had 81 votes with a staggering, as you mentioned earlier in the program, 85% for, 15% against. That translates to 69 votes for, 12 votes against. So people out there in the fan zone land area certainly want to see something along the lines of an off-season summer competition, a youth league, and that is great to see. It's funny that we actually had people from Hoppers Crossing. There's people from Ballarat as well getting in touch with us. We won't mention which clubs they were from, but they were really, really keen to say, yeah, we'd definitely be a part of it. Our club would definitely want to be a part of this. So the interest is there from outside of our region. It seems to me there seems to be an overwhelming interest from within the region. I know it was kind of my proposal, but I don't want to take the credit in the sense that it was just food for thought. But Steve, for something like this to happen, in your eyes, who would have to drive it and how would it get off the ground?
Yeah, 100%. It has to be club driven. I'm sure you would agree as well. The clubs have to want it. It can't be a matter of the Geelong Regional Football Committee chasing around after clubs to try and instigate it. It's got to be driven by our local clubs, and then it's encouraging to hear that there's clubs around the surrounding areas are interested as well. So I think driven by the clubs is the go, and perhaps if we can get it off the ground, maybe like next year, particularly after players have sort of missed out this year, maybe next year's the year to say, well, let's get together and do this. What do you think, Tonchi, with time frames and who should drive it?
Clubs, without a doubt, the clubs. It's for the clubs. It needs to be driven by the clubs, and I guess pushing it through the Geelong Region Football Committee, the GRFC. Ultimately, I think clubs, if it's the clubs themselves, they'll always look at it purely from a club perspective. That's why you do need the GRFC, and you absolutely do need the Football Victoria to back it. And there are various ways that can be done, but it has to be the clubs themselves pushing it. Otherwise, forget about it.
And when do you think we should, would you like to see this happening?
2021. Not this year. Definitely not this year. But if you've got that 12 months of planning, and clubs themselves know that they can even start recruiting or start developing some of their juniors on a 2-year basis. So, for example, this year we're going to develop kids or juniors that are 14, 15-year-olds that are next year going to be playing in that. Or they might be 16, 17-year-olds that are going to be playing. So, in effect, you're then sort of giving yourself a little bit of a vision, a little bit of a pathway. But I'd really love to hear from any of those Geelong City, or I think it was North Geelong as well, had a team in the old National Youth League Southern Division playing during the winter season. They used to play in the junior comps, or they used to play in the reserves, and then come in the summer off season, they played in the youth league for those two teams. I'd love to hear what those people think, but we've got Sharon Pamela saying it would be good for the GRFC and all local clubs in the women's comp to support each other by way of a developmental pathway from local Div 1 to State League, Lara SC, then on to Galaxy VPL and vice versa. That's a good point she makes. It's that pathway. Although she's probably talking about the Galaxy themselves and that, but it's the pathway. It's creating that pathway of, this could lead, the way I see it, this would lead then on to NPL clubs, who would then lead on to maybe the National Youth League, who would then lead on to, the A League. And by that stage, 2022, so if 2021 we had this Geelong Region Youth League kicking off, by 2022, you may well have a second-tier competition where some of these kids, the region's most talented players, guess what? They'll be knocking on the door of some of those second-tier teams or clubs, and that would be the ideal thing. Before we leave, Will Talev from the Geelong Soccer Club says, Ford casting plant site has been bulldozed. Ample space and car park is still existing. There's half your problem. Perfect for stadium and extra pitches. I love it, Will Talev. He's thinking along my lines there.
Prime location.
Yeah. Well, we're going to probably have to leave it there because we've almost gone the full 90 minutes, just like a game. And I'm ready to be substituted. Don't know about you, my friend, but thank you for being involved again this week, and thank you for your input. It has been a really, really interesting and insightful show this week.
Thanks, Tonchi. It's definitely been a fun one, and we look forward to doing it all again next week. And if you can't get your fix of football between now and then, this Thursday night at 7, it's Football Out West, and then this Sunday night at 7, tune into the Football Fan Zone.
The Football Fan Zone, purely a talkback show driven by the viewers, driven by the listeners, driven by the fans. And both those shows are at 7 p.m., both on the Football Out West News Facebook page. So don't, if you cannot get your football fix enough, we've now got 3 1-hour shows, or 3 1.5-hour shows, however that may be the case, each week to look forward to. On that note, Steve, good night. Look forward to having your delightful company next Tuesday night.
Yes, let's do it all again next week.
Absolutely. On that note, good night, and thank you for being a part of our show.
Good night.